Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm coming at you here today with a follow-up video to the Flutter UI that I posted the other day. And I had one of my new subscribers, thanks for checking out the channel by the way, who asked, how would we put a second screen here? I originally didn't go through this because I thought that if we want to do it right, we ought to build out all of these other screens, donation screen, add pet screen, favorites, and all of that. Because it doesn't make much sense. The screen below here is actually the animal detail screen right here. Yeah, let's just dive right into it. How are we going to do this? So here we are in that menu frame file that we created, which if you remember correctly is... if I remember correctly, is a stack. It's here we got a stack with our menu screen and then the animated positioned, which contains all of this with the scaling animation and with the position animation. So how do we want to go about doing this? The first thing we might do, let's just go ahead and copy. Let's copy this. Paste. So now we just have two of the same screen. We save, nothing happens. Nothing ought to happen. Let's go down here. So the way the stack works is you move down the hierarchy here, you're stacking things on top. So what we want to do is actually, let's go into the middle one. So the middle one is going to be our in-between screen here that's being layered just underneath the main screen. So let's take a look at this and see how we might go about doing this. The first thing I'm thinking is we want to change the size of this. So the scale for this one ought to be different because you can see it gets scaled down smaller and it's further, has that look like that it's further away. So let's go ahead and let's create another, let's just say smaller scale animation. And we'll have to initiate that here as well. Smaller scale animation. Let's just make it a bit smaller. And we're going to use that here in the scale transition. Smaller scale animation. Go ahead and restart our app. Okay, now I have the feeling that we're just not seeing it because it's stacked directly on top. So that means we have to change this. We might want to, I think, decrease this. Let's see what happens when we do this. Yep, there you go. You can already see the second screen peeking its head out. What do we want to do? What we want to achieve is a darker look, like this is an inactive screen. So what we want to do is maybe stack something on top of it. Let's see. Absorb pointer stack. So here's our stack. Material. Go ahead and change the color. It's not exactly what we're looking for. You see that? We still have some, we grayed out the background, but we still have some color showing through. So let's go ahead, let's get rid of that. And instead, we'll stack, just try and put a container on top. And for the color, I'm going to use our primary color with the opacity. Kind of what we did in the last videos. If you guys followed along through the last videos. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. You know, guys, to make this video a little bit more interesting, maybe What I'd like to do is sort of build this out with something that's a little bit more real life. I know we've only got the one screen that we're using here, but we can imagine that maybe you'd have another one behind it, and as you change through the menu here, you might want to switch which screen is showing on top. So what I might want to try, let's make a list. Let's call this our screens. Let's make 3. Let's see what we can do if we have 3 screens and if we can layer them one behind the other. Let's see. So instead of doing this stack, let's try to, what I want to do is I'm going to grab this animated position, and I want to return it from a function instead. So let's say build screen stack return all of this. And there should be, we expect there to be plenty of errors because, okay, device width, that's it, okay, device width. Let's just go ahead and copy that for the moment. Alright, and this is going to return a widget. And what we want to do is we want to return multiple, like for each time we call this function, we want to return one of these screens that's going to build this stack. So let's pass in like a position as an int, kind of like an index. And let's think about this. So what changed? What did we change when we created this second one? We changed the scale, and we changed this, the animated position. So how can we use our position integer to change this? So what we might consider doing is, let's go ahead and take this scale animation. Let's make a list of animation double, and we'll just call this scale animations with an S. And what is the problem here? Hey guys, what's up? I'm back. After having plenty of problems with my editor here, I think I finally got it working. I actually had to install an update to the Android Studio, but that seems to have fixed the problem. Alright, so hopefully we can get back on track here. I sort of lost my train of thought as to where we were, and I'm trying to hopefully get back right in the groove. Here we go. We've got a list of animations here that I was creating, and I initialize it here. What I wanted to do is have 3 screens. We've already done what we set out to do, which was just to put a second screen behind here and create like a sort of stack with the illusion that they're stacked on top of each other. But just to spice it up a little bit, I wanted to be able to maybe switch between the screens. You know, something that you guys could build out in more detail for your own apps. So here I've created the list of animations. So as we go down, I want each one to have a smaller scale. That's what we've got here. I've set up this list of 3 screens. We're just using the same screen over and over again. Actually, what I think I'm going to do instead is just replace these with containers that are colored. So now what we want to do is, this is where hold on, this is our original stack. This is what we've got here. So what I want to do is, gonna want to just blow this thing up, and let's just create a function that will return the list of widgets. We'll call this the final stack. stack to return, make an empty list to begin with, and at the end of this function we want to return that stack. In between, what we're going to do, we always want to have the menu. Let's go ahead and add the menu screen, and it'll always be on the bottom, so that's why I'm doing it like this. And then what I want to do is I want to get at, I've created this as a list that you guys could go ahead and use and plug in your own screens. That's the idea here, is that this would be sort of dynamic. It would adjust based on whatever you plug in. And this is the easiest possible thing, just colored containers. So let's go ahead and use screens dot as a map entries dot map. We'll just say screen entry. We want to call this function here and then add that to the stack to return. So let's go ahead and let's call this function build screen stack using the screen entry dot key. I'm going to turn this into a list, to list. And then for each screen, I want to stack to return add and add the screen. So this stack, so what we're doing is creating a stack, a list of widgets, and the first one is always the menu screen. That's our menu. And then for each one of the screens that we define here, we want to call this build screen stack function, passing in the index for a position, and then build up this stack of screens. So let's go ahead and replace all of this, and say final stack. It's definitely not going to work on the first try. What have we done? We've created a it's not the worst thing in the world that we're seeing. Okay, hold on. We need to replace, we're still using the adoption screen inside the screen stack. So we need to replace this with screens position. Let's restart. And now we've got just a white screen. Okay. I'm gonna open the menu. Let's run the animation. There we go. Okay, so what I did, guys, was we no longer have that icon button to open the menu, so I'm just forcing the menu open now and running the animation. Those are the two things that icon button used to do here. So if we click, each time we're gonna have to restart here, but it's quick enough that it's not gonna be that big of a deal. You see we've lost the rounded corners. Okay. And actually, we can see all the screens, but actually it's the reverse of what we want, right? The red one is the biggest one, and it should be covering the other two. So what we need to do is push the white and the blue one further into the screen. Right, so we have to go in to our build screen stack, and now we can use this position. Right now we're using it for the scale, but we haven't used it for the left and the right. So what we want to do is push. Now let's think about this. We want to push as the position gets higher. We want to push these into the screen. So that's going to be a minus here. Position times, I don't know, let's say 50 for the moment. And this will be the exact opposite. There we go. Okay. So we're getting the desired effect, but now they're in the wrong order. So it's in the wrong order than the logic that we thought. So maybe what we could do is just reverse. There we go. That's cool. Already that looks pretty cool, huh? And then this, we could stop here, and we could have stopped when we just added the second screen, but it would be cool if we could maybe change the screen based on what we click here in the menu screen. So when I click on a menu item, I want to keep track of which one of these I've clicked on and bring that one to the front. So that means that in the menu screen, there needs to be a function that tells us which item was called on. So let's go into our menu screen, and let's create a function as a callback with an argument of integer, because that's going to contain the selected index. Right, and then we're going to use this whenever we select on a tap. So let's say menu callback. That's widget dot menu callback, and you pass the index in. And then when we go into the menu frame, menu callback, well, that's a good question now. So how are we going to keep track? So each one of these screens is defined here. That's a good question. How are we going to keep track without losing the screens? We don't want to change the list of screens once they're defined. What I'm thinking we could do is, instead of having these screens as a list, we could go ahead and directly make a map. So now we need to change how we use this. Forgot to add the selected index as the integer in the callback. So that's easy. So now when we click on, we want to use this index. I think I'm going to define a variable. List of widget, and I'll just say screen snapshot. And at the beginning, I want that snapshot to be equal. So in the init state, screen snapshot is equal to screens, the map, and the values to list. Okay. So here, let's do a set state, because I'm going to be changing that variable in here. And here we're actually going to use that snapshot. So what I've done is I made a map out of the screens, and then I've created a variable that's just going to be a list, equivalent to what we had before, just a list of screens. So nothing's changed yet. So if I hit save, I think nothing will actually change except, I think I want to replace this with the snapshot too. And if I save, does anything break? Let's reset just to make sure. Okay, cool, that still looks pretty good. So then here is when things need to change. So I think I want to do is screen snapshot dot remove at index selected index. And that actually returns the thing that was removed. So let's say selected widget is equal to that. So if I remove it and then I just reinsert it at 0, let's try that. So screen snapshot dot insert at 0. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just pulling the widget out and putting it on top. And let's see what that looks like. Is it that easy? It can't be that easy. Okay, restarted. Cool, cool. Blue. We are having a problem here. We're not basing our new selection off of the original. What if I set the screen snapshot equal to screens dot values again? Each time going back and getting the original order of these. Oops. Blue, red, white, blue, red. Okay. All right, guys, that seems to be working. We were able to add a second screen and now a third screen, and even implementing a little bit of changing here when we click on the menu. So you can imagine if you built out this app and you had a donation screen, and that screen would all of a sudden appear on the top, you would click here. And that's one thing we didn't test. So let me see it. Each time, whenever the screen is on top, that's what we should open to. And that seems to be working. Let's try the blue just to make sure. So you guys can imagine if you made your own app and you wanted to bring that screen to the forefront and you open to that screen. So this is how it's done. The next step would probably be adding some cool animations, swiping the cards perhaps, making them slide away from the screen and come in their new position. That's a little bit more complicated and not something that I'm looking to cover at this point. I do want to say thanks again to my subscriber who requested this. Thanks for checking out the channel. I hope you guys are enjoying this stuff. I've got plenty more where this came from. So do hit like, hit subscribe if you like the content. That will definitely motivate me to keep on moving. Just beginning here, so this is a pretty cool to have some really nice positive comments from some of the users already, and looking forward to making the next one. Thanks, guys. See you next time.